if you were running over here. I got one more and then a quick song. You guys will be patient. This is called Cube. Maybe you remember Cube. It was the mid-1970s, 1977 to be exact, when what was then simply Warner Cable initiated an interactive cable system in Columbus, Ohio. It was called, for some unknown reason, Cube. Being the first cable network in the city, and this was back when cable monopolies were legal, if you had cable, you had Cube. Maybe it was called Cube after the box that sat on your living room coffee table. I'm not referring to the cable box underneath the television. This was a very large remote control. Back then, in the dark ages, you actually had to get up and turn the dial to change channels. No kidding, kids. So this was the very first remote control most of us ever had. Just set your television's dial to 03 and you never had to get up to change channels again. Cube had buttons all over it. It was about 8 inches by 12 inches and maybe 2 inches thick. You couldn't misplace this remote if you wanted to. Besides being huge, it had what looked like the transatlantic cable running from it across your living room floor and into the box under your TV. Most Cube subscribers tripped over this garden hose-sized cable on a daily basis, including me. But the simple joys of those heady days of virgin cable television. For the first time in a man's life, he had porn right there in his house, without having to go somewhere and purchase it. I mean, sure, it was mostly a lot of head-bobbing shots, but there were bare, bouncing breasts galore, and there were devious schemes to get this head-bobbing, bare-breasted fare for free. Men skulking in dark corners could be overheard whispering, "Hey, buddy, did you hear that if you put a stack of magnets over number 20, you can get porn for free?" Or, "It's true. All you have to do is jam a large safety pin in the cue box right under the send button, and you won't get billed for porn." It's true. Sometimes I really miss the 70s, even though I did get busted for the safety pin idea. I was watching something akin to head bobbing beach babes bare their bouncing breasts in Biloxi when the picture scrambled. Every frickin' channel was scrambled. I panicked and began pushing the big safety pin into the cube like a possessed voodoo doctor. When the repair guy confronted me about it, I stammered, "I think somebody messed with it at a party." He shook his head in disgust and muttered, Sure. He'd heard about the anti-fever, there's no doubt. What made Cube different from other cities' cables was that it was interactive. That is, you could send responses back to the television studio by casting votes on the Cube remote box. A range of numbers from 1 to 4, I think. And there were yes and no buttons at the bottom of the thing to let you communicate with the broadcaster. There were shows where you could vote for your favorite video, how the chef on the cooking show could make your eggs, weird concepts like that. The one show that caught my eye was this daily talent show. This was when I was just starting to play in Columbus as a musician. I can't remember the name of the talent show. It was on Monday through Friday in the late afternoon. The first 4 days would showcase 3 or 4 acts that would perform, and at the end, viewers at home would vote for the winner. The 4 daily winners would then return Friday for the weekly championship. And of course, there were monthly winners and finally a grand prize winner for the year. Prizes were donated by local businesses. It could be anything from a haircut to a massage to a dinner for 2 at a local eatery. I decided to give it a shot. I took my guitar and harmonica down to Warner Cube Studios and auditioned. I played a mean version of Bob Dylan's All Along the Watchtower with a wicked harmonica solo. I passed the audition. Of course, no one ever failed the audition. I guess it was just a formality to give the director the choice of variety of sets on specific shows. I was told to come back next Tuesday for the competition. The days leading up to Tuesday were filled with anxiety, practice, fret, practice. You get the idea. The day finally arrived, and as I sat waiting my turn, I was surprised to see a live studio audience. I'd heard them on television, but was never sure if they were real or amateurishly recorded. But there they were, sitting in small bleachers off to the side of the stage. People from all walks of life, children, teenagers, retired folks, people who had nothing better to do at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I reassured myself by assuming the ones voting for the winner were all those sophisticated viewers at home, the educated middle class who could afford Cube in their homes. Sure. I played I kicked ass. I won. And there I stood at the end of the show in front of the camera, next to the smiling, camera-waving hosts, clutching my little plastic trophy, credits rolling, applause filling the room. And I'm sure you'll want to come back on Friday to compete in the weekly final, won't you, Rick? The beautiful woman co-host was chirping to me. Fell out of my open mouth. This seemed the most exciting thing to happen to me since my instrumental surf band, The Illusions, won the junior high talent show when I was in the 7th grade. My career as a singer-songwriter was obviously well on its way. The next couple of days I was floating, savoring the exuberance of my sweet victory. My father and mother took Friday afternoon off work so most of my family could be at Cube Studios for the Friday weekly final. I was confident, and although I didn't know exactly who the other contestants were, I had watched the show enough times to know I had a very good chance of at least winning one more time. Besides, all my friends would be watching, and many of them would be pushing the button on their cube boxes. Votes for me magically streaming through the thick black cable, accumulating at the studio, culminating in yet another triumph for the guy with the Guild D50 guitar. Friday came, my wife, my mom and dad, my sister, they were all sitting in the bleachers on the Cube talent show set. I reprised the torrid rendition of All on the Watchtower one more time. The audience loved it, especially the harmonica part at the end. My family beamed at me, and I felt good. But then the karma shifted. An older gentleman, a 75-year-old guy, nice guy, I found out later, came out with a handsaw and a violin bow. Now, this was hardly the first time I'd see somebody play the saw. There was a peculiar teacher in my high school who taught how to play the saw every year at the high school talent show. Mr. Mossman, weird guy, good saw player, I think. If you've never had the pleasure of listening to someone play a Sears Craftsman handsaw, well, the word that comes to mind is unearthly. It's a kind of almost continuous whining, like lost souls calling to heaven for rescue, for the promise of eternal sleep. And as this old man drew his bow over the bent saw blade, I could see the somewhat uneasy inquisitiveness of the faces of the studio audience. When he finished, they applauded politely, and I felt confused. But when the final votes came in, it was close. The 75-year-old man with the handsaw was declared the weekly winner. I was second to a man in his handsaw. I was beside myself with dismay. I was in shock. My family tried to cheer me up. Make the best of it, son. It's just a bunch of kids at home voting on their parents' cable, my father reassured me. But I tried to make sense of it all. And the lesson I eventually learned is that many times the only sense of things in this life is nonsense. And that's not always a bad thing. And the nonsense continued with the two of us up on stage at the end of the weekly finals. The bubbling hosts, while the credits rolled and the audience applauded, and it had a battle prize. Me, I got a jar of Orville Redenbacher popcorn. The 75-year-old guy, he got a pair of bright red Speedos. Somehow this made me feel better. So if you're ever at the beach someday and you see a 105-year-old man romping around in bright red Speedos, walk up and congratulate him. But you may have to wind your way through a throng of bare-breasted, bouncing beach babes, swooning to the eerie, hypnotic sound of him playing, oh so earnestly, a Sears Craftsman handsaw. It's time for a song or two. I have no idea what year it is. This is for a man in his saw. deep and exposed. Along the watchtower, Christmas gave a view, while all the women came and went barefoot serving, came and went through. Outside in the future, while Jackie drive, while two riders were broken now, and the rain began to Thanks for coming.